Help me to welcome Osaru into the house. Is a sister, being a psychologist. She's had wide experience and knowledge in the field of psychology, relating with humans, relating with nature, relating with the environment. And this particular season is very challenging to many people in the United Kingdom, those who are natives, and in fact, much more challenging to those of us who came from the African. This time is really challenging for us because we are used to having lots of sunshine round the year, maybe just about a month without so much sunshine. And we don't normally have it this freezing cold. So this kind of weather is not what we are used to, and some people do go down under the weather with so many symptoms. And so what Osaro will be doing for us today will be to first introduce herself to us, walk us down possibly a career pathway, then tell us about the big thing we are here for. And the big thing we are here for is to discuss sad. Yeah, she will let us know everything about that. Yeah, she will let us know everything about that. Yeah. I always share good news. So when you hear sad, don't think it's something about unhappiness. Of course, there could be tinge of some things related to that, but how do we prevent? How do we take care of people who are experiencing such symptoms? That is why, like natural things we can do, and maybe bits of medicals. That's why you have Osaro here. It's a field. My hands are off completely now. You just be seeing me smiling. Did you see my facial expression to communicate with you guys? She has the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my sister. Hello, everybody. My name is Osara. So, my career. Okay. My first degree was in psychology. So I worked as an assistant psychologist and worked in a school as well with special needs children and in a bit of admin, managing the library and all, and event management and all on the side. Then I came down to the UK to do my master's in health psychology, which is still in the same field. Yes, I worked at 111 as a health advisor, but then I decided to move on to a more relevant role, a role that's relevant to my course as a health psychologist, and because I want to do further training in the field as well. So I work with smokers, pregnant smokers. I'm a smoking cessation advisor. So it's more what I do is more of behavior change techniques, motivational interviewing, and health promotion, really. So yes.
Thank you very much.
Another thing?
I know 111, especially the one we worked together with, don't give COSs out to some level of people, and maybe that contributed to why you left us. Could you tell us whether the current role you are in, you got a COS for it, or you are on post-study visa?
Okay. 111. Well, at the my previous trusts, not just 111. The previous trust really does not give sponsorship for a lot of roles. I think they only give nurses and doctors, and then they don't give a lot of roles. But then, so I moved on because I felt, well, I want to do further training to become a licensed psychologist in the UK, and to do that training, I need to be in a relevant role. And that was the main reason why I moved. Really, was purely a career move. Yes, well, I want to do further training to become a licensed psychologist in the UK, and to do that training, I need to be in a relevant role. My current trust, they did give me sponsorship for the role, so yes.
Wow.
It was an added benefit, really.
Yes.
My current trust, they did give me sponsorship for the role, so yes.
Wow.
It was an added.
Congratulations, biggest congratulations. We wish you more of such. Now let's go into what we are here for. Sad. What is sad? Please tell us everything that you can tell us about sad, please.
Okay, so SAD, that's the acronym. The full term of the condition is seasonal affective disorder. It sounds like a big word. So basically what SAD is, or what seasonal affective disorder, it's a major depressive disorder that has a seasonal pattern. And so what that means is it occurs seasonally. We see the symptoms come up and they occur during the fall or autumn and winter months. So we usually find the symptoms in places in countries or in environments where we have fall, autumn, and winter. And then when I say depression, I don't use the term depression here loosely because we know a lot of people just throw the word depression around. Oh, I feel depressed, I'm depressed, when they really mean they're sad or they're unhappy or something is just not going right for them. But here, when we say depression, it's what I'm talking about, something major. It's a clinical diagnosis. So when it's a clinical diagnosis, it's diagnosed by professionals. When we talk about SAD, it affects about, in the UK alone, SAD affects about 3 out of 100 people have significant seasonal depression, and significant because it affects their daily functioning. We know one of the main questions people ask is, oh, what are the prevalence factors? What's the population affected? It affects a lot of people. It affects so many people. We know for some reason, symptoms start to show between the ages of 16 and 30, so in the early years. And then when the individual gets to 50 onwards, the symptoms start to decrease. Interestingly, the 3 times more common in women of childbearing age than in men. So interestingly, it affects younger women more than it affects men. It's also less common in children. But then when people get to the age of 50 onwards, men and women are affected equally. So it could affect men, it could affect women at the same ratio. It doesn't really matter. But at the childbearing age, at the younger stage, it affects women more than it affects men. We know people who have a family history of seasonal affective disorder, people who have a family history of other depressive disorders like bipolar depression and the like, are also at a higher risk of having this condition. An interesting question, when I was doing some digging and found that it affected women a lot more, younger women a lot more than it affected men of that age. One of the reasons research says is likely because women are not as active as their male counterparts. So it's the women are not as active in physical activity. They don't engage in physical activity or exercise as much as the men do. It could also be because of they experience a dysregulation of their hormones. So it's either they overproduce or underproduce the hormones. Not really sure why, but it's a biological thing. And then for the younger population, they're equally so they're also vulnerable. It seems, or the younger people, they're at that stage where their hormones are constantly fluctuating and changing with the growth and puberty and all of that. So that's why sometimes they're a bit more vulnerable to this condition, as it were. What are some of the causes of SAD? We do know it's the causative factors. It's not fully understood. We know for a fact though that it only happens during periods where there's a significant change in the amount of sunlight. That's what we have. That's one of the things that characterizes autumn, fall, winter period. That's the main characteristic. Apart from the cold weather, there's a very significant change in the amount of sunlight. There's one of scientists and researchers have said posed some reasons which I seem to agree with. From studies, one of the causes of the seasonal affective disorder is one of the proposed causes was circadian rhythm disruption. Now that's a big word, but basically what it just says is when your body's internal clock is not in sync with your environment. So without going into a detailed biology session, let me just break it down a bit. Everybody has an internal body clock, right? Now, our internal clock cycles every 24 hours, just like our normal clock. But to do this, for the body clock, internal clock to cycle 24 hours, for it to do this work effectively, It takes cues from the environment. So it takes signals and pointers from the environment. So things like daytime, nighttime, when we eat, active periods, our periods of rest. These are some of the things that affect our internal body clock. Daytime, we know daylight and nighttime are very important for the human body. Sunlight enables our body to produce a hormone that's called serotonin, which we also call the happy hormone. Serotonin also causes a happy hormone as well. While in the night time, we have the body produces a hormone called melatonin. And this hormone is strictly produced when there's low or no sunlight at all. What happens now? We know our body in the daytime, our body produces serotonin, and in the nighttime, it produces melatonin. When this, let's go back to our internal body clock. When the body clock and the cycle is not in sync with the environment, we start to see things like sleep difficulties, poor sleep quality, and things like that. Researchers found that there's a very strong correlation between this disruption of our circadian rhythm, our internal body clock, and mood disorders like depression. So we now wonder, how does winter and fall affect all of this? We know that during the fall and winter months, we have less daylight hours. We have the sun. We have the sun setting sometimes as early as 4:30 p.m. Like now, we see 4:30 p.m. It's already dark, and as late as 7 a.m., 7:30 sunlight. We start to see sunlight. So we are beginning to have we're starting to have longer periods of nighttime than daylight. So this is, and we know this is a very significant change in the daylight and the nighttime, which our body definitely needs for the production of these two hormones. We know this significant change, it alters the level of concentration of the hormones produced, like I mentioned earlier. When there is decreased sunlight, like we're having now, we have we could start to see people suffer with serotonin deficiency. Now we know that serotonin, which is the hormone that the body produces in the daytime, it doesn't only regulate our circadian rhythm, which is our body clock, it also regulates our mood and our personality. And it's been found that from tests and most of the sufferers of this seasonal affective disorder, they've been found to have elevated levels of melatonin, which is the hormone produced in the nighttime. So they have elevated levels of that. And this is most likely what accounts for the feelings they experience, feelings of fatigue and excess sleep, which brings us to, I hope I'm not confusing anybody now with all the biology lessons, sort of. But this just brings us down to the signs and the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. We know that we have what terminology, something we say, oh, this person has got the blues. Blues are a milder form of depression. They're really mild, they pass. But we know with seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, the symptoms are usually more severe than when the individual has what we call blues. And these symptoms, while they may not seem like massive for some of us, they can be very distressing for the person that's going through it. And often it affects their daily functioning so much that they're not able to carry out their daily functioning or the daily activities as they used to before they started to show symptoms. Some of the common symptoms include changes in the sleeping pattern. So we could see the individual could possibly be sleeping too much or sleeping more than usual. Another symptom is lethargy. That's extreme tiredness or very low energy levels. So we have the individual sleeping too much or sleeping more than usual, yet still feeling extremely tired or having extremely low energy levels, even though they seem they have slept so much more than they usually do. Another symptom is avolition, which simply put is the loss of motivation. And that's what usually accounts for the individual being, that's what accounts for the difficulty sometimes in the individual performing their daily activities. Just don't have that motivation, just don't feel like doing anything at all. For some people, they experience suicidal ideation. That's thoughts of death and taking their own lives. For some people, it's that severe. They experience symptoms as severe as that. Another common symptom we have is change in appetite. That's where, and I know I have experienced this as well. This winter period, I find I eat more, and I find speaking with a lot of people, it's the same thing they experience. You just tend to eat more. Definitely, I know there's that sleeping more as well. But so for some people, a lot of people, there's change in appetite to eat a lot more. There's you could have difficulty concentrating or difficulty thinking. So you constantly losing your train of thoughts. You're not able to focus on a thought pattern or on something. You're not able to concentrate even when reading. It's just mind keeps wandering, or you're tired. You're not able to just focus really. For some, they could present with an increase in meaningless physical activity. But for this to be a symptom, it must be severe enough that other people are noticing it. So you can't just say, oh, I'm engaging in meaningless physical activity, so I've got a symptom. No. Other people, apart from you, must notice that you are engaging in this for us to call it a symptom.
I'm sure some people.
Another symptom people have is persistent low mood. So they're just low, not happy, just demoralized, depressed, persistently. So it lasts more than a week, more than a day or two. It's more than a passing feeling. It's there constantly. We know that for a lot now, these symptoms, while they seem like a lot, they may not present in all sufferers. So what that means is not everybody will experience or display all of the symptoms. For some, it might just be mild. And for others, it will be severe. It will be very severe. So like I said, for some, the symptoms will not be severe enough for it to preempt any medication or medical treatment for it. So it's just mild and it will pass over time. For the ones who the symptoms are so severe, they do need to get checked and they need to see their GP or specialist or consultant and get treatment for it. Because like we said, if left on, depression is a big issue. This is a depressive disorder. If left untreated, could escalate into something more severe. One of the ways people can find out they've got this. So for someone who feels they're experiencing all of these symptoms or a lot of these symptoms and they're just not able to understand, they don't understand themselves, they don't know what's going on, they're really struggling, it's affecting their daily life, it's affecting their activities, they would need to go to their own GP or doctors or consultants, as the case may be. Physical examination is usually done by the GP. Sometimes lab tests are done. So the lab tests will just test them, just to do a complete blood count test their thyroid functions, because like I mentioned earlier, one of the main causes is that disruption of the rhythm and then that hormonal imbalance. So to just do a test to check the thyroid function, ensure that there's nothing going wrong in the endocrine system, the hormones are not out of sync, or there's no problem with the thyroid glands itself. Then a psychological assessment is often done. So with the psychological assessment, we use standardized questionnaires and rating skills. So the individual will answer questions based on the standardized set of questions, answer them, and these answers are rated and scored to determine what the person has, if they've got this seasonal affective depression or any other depressive disorders, and how severe it is. So the scale, the questionnaires usually will ask, the individual will answer questions about the mood, the sleep pattern, the lifestyle. If they've got a family history that could indicate or contribute to depression, they would answer questions about the severity of their symptoms, the symptoms they are currently experiencing. Like we know, a lot of time family history is important, because for people, we know sometimes depression is hereditary, especially with bipolar depression and seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. Some people will present with symptoms because their family members had it, direct family members had it. So for some, it's genetic. And these are things that need to be taken account of. So an individual who probably is not experiencing severe symptoms, but has a family history of seasonal affective depression or other depressive disorders, probably will be watched or have more interaction, will be watched more closely just to ensure nothing, it doesn't develop further or doesn't get worse than it is, because there's that risk factor already in place. With all of this, we can see what could potentially cause it. We can see the symptoms to watch out for. How do we prevent this? Because this is the main thing, really. How do we prevent this? We say eat healthy. Eat healthy. It can be tricky for a lot of people because when we live busy lives, you have to get up, get to work early, get back home. You're like, oh, just pick up fast food. We tend to eat unhealthy. So eat healthy, eat balanced diets, avoid isolation. Those feelings of avolition, depression, they thrive in isolation. So as much as possible, avoid isolation. Exercise as much as possible. Keep up physical activity. So as little as jumping, skipping, going on short walks. I understand the weather is not friendly right now. It's cold and it can be discouraging, but that exercise and physical activity works a great deal. It has a great impact on our mental health as well. Find ways to manage your stress. Everyone reacts to stress differently, but we know prolonged stress is not healthy for the body or for the individual. Prolonged stress just increases your risk, your susceptibility for infections and illnesses and diseases. So as much as possible, find ways to manage your stress. Load up on your vitamin D and vitamin B complex, especially vitamin B6. Also have a schedule for your sleep and waking up period and stick to it. It's I know that can be very difficult right now, especially as we can see by 4:35 it's dark. You get back home from work at 5:30 and you're like, it's already very dark. That darkness tricks your mind and tricks your body that you think, oh, this is nighttime, I need to go to bed now. But then what happens is you are disrupting your circadian rhythm because, like I said earlier, the rhythm takes cues from the environment. So things like when you wake up, when you go to bed, this is what affects your internal body clock. So have a strict schedule, have a schedule for your sleeping and waking up and stick to it. Sorry. So and stick to that as well. What are the treatments? So for someone who's experienced this now, how can it be treated? Someone who's suffering from this, how can it be treated? One of the main therapies that we know one of the main therapies that the doctors and physicians use is bright light therapy. That's the major treatment protocol. What happens, like I said, the body produces serotonin in daylight. So bright light therapy is used in the morning to increase serotonin production and suppress the body's secretion of melatonin. So what this does is it sort of retrains the circadian rhythm, and then corrects that dysregulation and then corrects the internal body clock dysregulation. So how does this work? The individual is exposed to light from a light box for 30 minutes every morning for a few days, weeks, months, depending on how severe their symptoms are. They could, depending on how bad or severe the symptoms are, they could also be prescribed antidepressants and selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Now these drugs, antidepressants and inhibitors, used in combination with talking therapies like CBT, they help to alleviate some of the symptoms. Behavior modification is also a very good one to engage in, and it's been proven to help manage symptoms. So behavior modification is important. It's proven to help manage symptoms. Of course, these will be delivered by the mental health workers, the psychiatrists, psychologists, and the GPs where necessary. As like we said earlier, one of the treatment plans is get as much sunlight as possible. Exercise, increase your vitamin D uptake, We know serotonin is highly dependent on the availability of vitamin D in the body. Like I said earlier, eat healthy. Most of the body's serotonin is produced in the guts, that's our stomach, and intestines. Remind yourself that the seasons come and the seasons go, and soon enough, winter will pass and give way to spring, which comes with newness and bloom. So it's not going to be all dark and gloomy and depressive and cold. This season will go, and with that, when it goes, your feelings will improve. Above all, be open to your loved ones. Let them know what you're going through and how they can support you. It's one thing to be experiencing these symptoms, but then if no one knows what you're going through, you don't have that support. And for people with depression, support, people who are experiencing depression, support is important. It plays a great part in the recovery process. We have support groups. Depending on what part of the world you are, you would most definitely need to speak with your GP or your healthcare professional or your provider for referrals or information about these. In the UK, we have charities like Mind, Samaritans, Depression UK, and there's a few others, but some of these you can self-refer to if you feel you need some support. Now, I know for Africans, we're coming from an environment where we have the sun shining 24/7. It's constantly hot. There's everything. It's hot. It's sunny. It's beautiful. And then we come straight into this weather. Especially for those who come into school in September, you're coming in just as the seasons are changing. We're used to that sunlight. There's the high risk of us experiencing this blue winter blues. Might not be as severe. For some it becomes very severe, especially because we're coming out of we've left that environment, and then you've also come in, especially for those who've come in alone. You've left your family members, you've left your loved ones, you've left your support system back home. It's just you in this new environment, and it's cold, it's dark, it's looking unfriendly. You're trying to adjust to the environment, and then the weather throws its not very niceness at you. How do you cope? How do you manage? The first thing we advise is find a support system, find a community, whether it's be church, mosque, your tribal associations, ethnic associations, or ethnic groups, your fellow African community, church, whatever it is, find an association, find a community, and load up on your vitamin D. It's interesting how many people we don't, and it's sad because I didn't even realize this as well when I first came in here. I just noticed that during the winter period I was just extremely tired. And it was interesting because I'll go to bed at 5 and by midnight I'm up, I can't sleep again. And that's why it's important to have a sleep schedule and stick to it. But then coming in, nobody tells us all of this. Nobody tells us all of these things. And if you've not experienced it before, there's that risk of falling into this. So it's important to have load up on your vitamin D as much as possible, just so that you're not lacking on the sunlight which you're used to. We know we need that sunlight. We need that. And if you can't get that sunlight, then get your vitamin D. Have your B complex vitamins. The body needs them. Your body needs them. Definitely. Go out, take walks. It's cold. It's not very nice weather, but exercise as much as possible. These are very important. They're very important. Exercise it's great medicine for the soul. It's great medicine for the mind. It uplifts your mood. Okay. I think no, yes, so those are just basically what we do need to prevent as much as possible having this ourselves from falling or having this disorder, or at all experiencing it severely.
Thank you so much. You've done justice to it such that I don't even think I have questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for me?
I'm not sure I've got any question for you. Maybe when the people are back here, they will be able to ask questions, and
I
I'll
can't
direct
hear
them to
you.
you.
I can't hear you.
So I've got no questions so far. Thank you so much. We are very, very grateful. Thank you very much.
Oh, so sorry, I can't hear you.
Mm, 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 mm. Hello. Ah,
Can you hear me?
sure, 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 sure. Clearly. I don't know. Why is it that she